Hello, everyone. Welcome to the show. Thank you so much for checking this out. Welcome to the breakdown. If you are not aware of this, President Trump, a few hours ago, as I record this, made a statement and talked about liberating DC and invoked an article and enforced a rule and made up stuff and all this other stuff that's going on here down in DC. Apparently, the crime is out of control. Homicide rates are out of control, and believe me, we all understand. If you've ever been to DC, then you understand that it can be problematic down there. But I don't know if I agree with the complete federalization of the troops and whatever else he's trying to do. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at what CNN broadcast his speech from the White House press briefing room here. So we're gonna put this on the screen here. Here we go here. So we're gonna listen to what President Trump has to say about this situation. And here we go. We'll play here. It's going to be a 1.25 speed. So, and then we're going to actually read what the policy says, or we're going to get into a little bit more of what's going on with this. So just stay tuned as we break this down. Thank you so much for checking us out. Hit the like button. Here we go.
I've been up here a lot. I've never seen a crowd like this. I think we need a ballroom, and that's happening. It's going to be a beautiful ballroom. This is really a lot of people.
Man, people have always talked about the way he talks and speaks, and his everything's the best and beautiful. It's going to be a big, beautiful ballroom. This is the big, beautiful building. This is going to be this is going to be that. And I've never seen so many people in this room, and never did this. I've got the greatest crowd size of all times. I'm the greatest president. Oh my God,
I've ever seen in this room. And we're here for a very serious purpose, very serious purpose. Something's out of control, but we're going to put it in control very quickly, like we did on the southern border. I'm announcing a historic action to rescue our nation's capital from crime, bloodshed, bedlam, and squalor, and worse. This is Liberation Day in D.C., and we're going to take our capital back. We're taking it back. Under the authorities vested in me as the President of the United States, I'm officially invoking Section 740 of the District of Columbia Home Rule Act. You know what that is? And placing the D.C. Metropolitan Police Department under direct federal control, and you'll be meeting the people that will be directly involved with that.
We all know what that is, right? I know most of us don't. I had to go look it up. I know what he's talking about. I'm not from D.C. So we'll look that up. And remember what he said here. He's placing them under federal control. We'll read through this in a little bit here, so just stay tuned.
Very good people, but they're tough, and they know what's happening. They've done it before. In addition, I'm deploying the National Guard to help reestablish law, order, and public safety in Washington, D.C., and they're going to be allowed to do their job properly. And you people are victims of it, too. You know, you're reporters, and I understand a lot of you tend to be on the liberal side, but you don't want to get mugged and raped and shot and killed. And you all know people and friends of yours that happened. And so you can be anything you want, but you want to have safety in the streets. You want to be able to leave your apartment or your house where you live.
Forgive me for this. I just want to be clear about what he said. Not only is he placing D.C. Metro Police under federal jurisdiction, but he's also deploying troops there as well. So I just want to
Home Rule Act. You know what that is? And placing the D.C. Metropolitan Police Department under direct federal control, and you'll be meeting the people that will be directly involved with that. Very good people, but they're tough, and they know what's happening, and they've done it before. In addition, I'm deploying the National Guard to help reestablish law, order, and public safety in Washington, D.C., and they're going to be allowed to do their job properly. And you people are victims of it, too. You know, you're reporting.
What does that mean? What does that mean? I mean, he's talking again. He's talking about federalizing troops, sending the National Guard down there. Is this a disaster, a national emergency? This is crime. Granted, it's high. We all get that, but there's other ways to deal with this besides using the hammer and nail technique here and just shoving people off the streets and, dealing with the homeless people. And what does that mean? How is he planning to do any of that? What is the direction that they're going to go under? And remember, we still have something that's called the U.S. Constitution. The U.S. Constitution, I got the wrong thing up here. The U.S. Constitution mandates that things go a certain way and be deployed in a certain methodology. So you can't just deploy these troops down there and then say that they're not behaving correctly, or give them more latitude than you would give the police. Stop and frisk, arrest, use of force. All these things got to be considered. Continue on with this here.
And I understand a lot of you tend to be on the liberal side, but you don't want to get mugged and raped and shot and killed. And you all know people and friends of yours that happened. And so you can be anything you want, but you want to have safety in the streets. You want to be able to leave your apartment or your house where you live and feel safe and go into a store to buy a newspaper or buy something. And you don't have that now. The murder rate in Washington today is higher than that of Bogota, Colombia, Mexico City, some of the places that you hear about as being the worst places.
Love how they're fact checking them here. Source DC Metropolitan Police.
On earth, much higher. This is much higher. The number of car thefts has doubled over the past 5 years, and the number of carjackings has more than tripled. Murders in 2023 reached the highest rate probably ever. They say 25 years, but they don't know what that means because it just goes back 25 years. Can't be worse. Our capital city has been overtaken by violent gangs and bloodthirsty criminals, roving mobs of wild youth, drugged out maniacs and homeless people. And we're not going to let it happen anymore. We're not going to take it.
Gosh, his language is so uncouth. Just so uncouth. There's obviously better, more articulate, more fanciful $5 words he could use. This guy's leader of the free world, and he's going to say this essentially. He's going to talk about he's going to meet with Putin and all this.
Yeah, just like we did on our southern border. Nobody comes to our southern border anymore. 3 months in a row, we had zero. I don't know if that's right, but the people that do the work, it's a very liberal group of people, actually, and they actually said zero for the last 3 months. Nobody thought a thing like that was possible. And, when you take a look at numbers, I just saw some charts. These are different cities throughout the world. The red is a place called Washington, D.C. Look at these. Baghdad we doubled up on Baghdad. Panama City, Brasilia, San Jose, Costa Rica, Bogota, Colombia, heavy drugs. Mexico City, I mentioned, Lima, Peru, all double and triple what they are. So do you want to live in places like that? I don't think so. And I think the people in this room.
I think what he's saying is that those cities are safer than the United States. I think that's what his point is. About Washington, D.C. in particular.
If you wrote correctly, you'd see, look at the kind of numbers we have. D.C., 41 per 100,000, number one that we can find anywhere in the world. Other cities are pretty bad, but they're not as bad as that. Is that where you want to live? The reporters of the world? Juvenile offenders and crimes against persons, as they say. Getting worse. Not getting better, it's getting worse. And we had a recent indication. There was a story about a man who was just left. He quit because he was asked to do phony numbers on crime. And we're going to look into that. I think Pam is going to be looking into that. But he was asked by the city, I guess, we don't want to show the real numbers. Let me do numbers so it looks like it's going down. Not going down. And under Biden, it was a disaster. And nobody did anything about it. We're going to do things about it like you wouldn't believe. It's time for dramatic action. We're going to do the same thing over here. It's going to be a very safe city very soon. We're not looking to just take years because a lot of people die in years. And we've got incredible people in this country, except we have to allow them to do their job. And that
coming from a law enforcement perspective, I'm curious as to what that statement means. We're going to allow them to do their job. And I thought this was a live interview. Apparently it's not. So I just want to be correct about that. It's certainly not live as I'm doing it, but as I'm watching this. So what does he mean by we're going to allow them to do their jobs? Again, we're going to violate people's Fourth and Fifth and First Amendment, Second Amendment violations. What exactly are we talking about when we talk about allow them to do their jobs?
Will deliver like nobody's ever delivered before. I actually think it's easy. If you're competent, it's easy. If you're incompetent, it's impossible. But I'm very competent.
Surely has no idea about law enforcement, what they do, and the restraints that we, the people, have put on them to be free from unreasonable searches and seizures, etc., and different constraints that the judicial the SCOTUS, the Supreme Court of the United States, says you can and cannot do as police officers, not just uniformed police officers, but that's federal agents, that's ICE agents, that's FBI, uh, corrections officers. Any agent of the state has to abide by these different parameters that have been set forth in the Constitution and then again interpreted by the Supreme Court of the United States. So what does he mean by this? This language is troubling to me.
Last week, my administration surged 500 federal agents into the district, including from the FBI, ATF, DEA, Park Police, the U.S. Marshal Service, the Secret Service, and the Department of Homeland Security. You know, a lot of nations, they don't have anything like that. They got some police, and they're rough police. They don't have DEA, ATF, FBI, Park Police, U.S. Marshal Service, Secret Service, Department of Homeland Security. They got some police, but they're rough police, and they do their job. They don't have crime. We're not going to have crime either. They made dozens of arrests.
This is such an unsophisticated analysis of what crime is and why it happens and where it occurs and et cetera. And he just pulled up some cities across the globe that have less numbers than Washington, D.C. And there's every criminal justice major should be able to articulate what the problems are and why they occur, and to simply call for more law enforcement, more hammers to go in there and break situations, to overrun people is not going to help the situation. You have to bring in jobs. That's one of the biggest factors, but that's a story for another day. You have to bring in jobs and give people something to do. I agree with cleaning up the neighborhoods. Certainly a sociological redevelopment needs to go on. Cultural training. I agree with all that. But steamrolling in here with these federal agents, federalizing this police department, can't see what it's going to do.
And that's what starts to happen. Again, cashless bail. Watch what we do with that. Today, we're formally declaring a public safety emergency.
Cashless bail, again, cashless bail was meant to address some certain situations wherein people were just bailing out of jail. Now, I can understand the controversy over cashless bail. That situation is again more complex than what the president is articulating right here. You have people who are languishing behind bars because they can't afford to pay bail. You have people who, we're building bigger, more elaborate facilities to house people over minor petty crimes. We ought to have, go back to a fine system. But then again, what happens when people don't pay their fine? So it's a complex problem that, again, bringing more federal agents in here is not going to solve.
Emergency. This is an emergency. This is a tragic emergency. And it's embarrassing for me to be up here. I'm going to see Putin. I'm going to Russia on Friday. I don't like being up here talking about how unsafe and how dirty and disgusting this once beautiful capital was, with graffiti all over the walls. It's another part of it, by the way, because we're talking about safety, but we're also talking about beautification. We have the most beautiful, potentially, capital in the world. We always had. But people come from Iowa, they come from Indiana, they come and then they get mugged. Not going to happen. Keep coming, because by the time you get your trip set, it's going to be safe again, and it's going to be clean.
I'm sure that's a shots fired, underhanded tone of the people from Iowa and Indiana are mostly of a certain ethnic persuasion. So I'm sure there's some racial undertones in that statement he just mentioned right there.
Clean very quickly. We're going to replace the medians that are falling down all over the roads. We're going to replace the potholes. We're going to put a nice new coat of asphalt over the top. No, we don't have to rip the road out and spend 7 years building a new road because they cut everything. Because some designers said, well, we need a quarter of an inch more turn for safety reasons. No, we're going to do it right. We're going to get it done.
That I agree with, making the city more beautiful from what the city can do. Again, this is the problem that people have with, the money that's flowing to other countries. That's the issue that they have. Invest in our own country, infrastructure. This is what we're talking about. That I agree with 100%.
Quickly. So today we're declaring public safety emergency in the District of Columbia. And Attorney General Pam Bondi, who's fantastic, is taking command of the Metropolitan Police Department as of this moment. And I'll be making the appropriate notifications to Congress and to the mayor, our new DEA administrator, who's one of the top in the country. He better be Terry if you're not going to get rid of you so fast. Terry Cole. Terry, thanks. Very good. We just got him. Most highly recommended person.
And you know, if he don't do his job, he'll be an idiot. I thought this guy was somebody special. He turned out to be nobody, and he got rid of him so fast. You never seen he gets rid of somebody so fast.
And you'll be designated as the interim federal commissioner of the Metropolitan Police Department. Okay? And you run them tough. They're good. You have a lot of good people. You have people that shouldn't be there. You also have people that shouldn't be there. They got in there because of woke. But you have a lot of great police. And those people are the...
How does he know that they got in there because of woke? I'm sure that they have strict hiring procedures. In fact, Washington, D.C. at one time had one of the highest police department requirements to get in. Everybody had to have a bachelor's degree. And if they dropped it, I'm not sure if they did, but if they dropped it, it was only due to the fact that they couldn't hire anyone because of they didn't have a bachelor's degree. So, you know, my recommendations are that within 5 years of being hired, you have to obtain a bachelor's degree. And I think that should be a standardized model for all police departments across the United States. You get hired, you got 5 years to complete your bachelor's degree.
The ones that want to help you.
Pamela, it was more than an hour. He started this news conference, and it's been going on and on, answering a bunch of questions.
Yeah, and this is significant because what he announced today is a federal takeover of D.C. police and deploying the National Guard. I mean, this is, as far as I know, unprecedented to hear it.
National Guard and potentially other U.S. military troops down the road.
Exactly.
This says, breaking news, deploying National Guard to D.C., placing police under federal control, says officers will be authorized to do whatever the hell they want. This has already settled case law. You cannot do that. Go in there. What does that mean? Plant drugs on people, beat people, scare people, you lie to people, intimidate people. What does that mean? You know, you're gonna, you know, getting rid of the cashless bail system, so you know people have to. I think I misspoke about that. The cashless bail. Cashless bail refers to the system where we're not going to house people behind bars, and we're going to, instead of causing them to allow them to have bail or some form of cash as a payment to get out of bail, get out of prison or get out of jail, what they would rely on their past records and the probability of reoffending, the probability of them attending court. That's what the cashless bail system is.
And he made it clear that this could just be the beginning, that it might not just be D.C. And I think that that is significant as well. And of course, this is an extraordinary move by the president. I want to bring in our Brian Todd here. Brian, we're already getting reaction from D.C. council members.
We are, Pamela and Wolf. This coming into CNN from Council Member Charles Allen of the 6th Ward in D.C. His post is, quote, the president taking over local control of MPD and putting the U.S. military onto the streets of D.C. under the guise of public safety is wrong. It's an extreme, outrageous, and dangerous move for our city and the safety of all of our residents. He's the first city council member to react to this whole thing. None of them had reacted really last week to this in any real measure. This is the first time a city council member has reacted and come out strongly on this. We're also reaching out to Mayor Muriel Bowser's office and the office of the Metropolitan Washington Police Department for their response. We started to reach out to them while this news conference was going on. No word back from them yet. The mayor has been fairly muted in her comments on this. She did speak out yesterday in an interview, but did not openly criticize the president for this. It's an extraordinary move. We have to point out, never before in American history has the U.S. president taken over control of the Metropolitan Washington, D.C. Police Department. How is this going to work on the streets? How is it going to work from a command and control standpoint? That is a huge, huge question. And of course, his threat to do this in other cities, we'll see how that plays out. I think you got to see how it really plays out here first.
Right. And we should also note that he talked about moving the homeless population in D.C., right. Thousands of people far away without offering those specifics.
He didn't say where they were going. I want to bring in our senior White House reporter, Kevin Liptak. Kevin, you've been monitoring this very, very closely. What jumps out at you?
Yeah, and I think the president's steps here to federalize the D.C. police force certainly very significant. What we didn't hear from the president was how long that would last. You know, the statute that he's using, the D.C. Home Rule Act, allows for initial federalization for 48 hours before notifying Congress. He said that he was doing that. So beyond that, we don't know exactly how long it would last. The other thing that stuck out was the president raising open the possibility that he would use active duty troops as part of this effort, saying that they would be ready as needed to join the National Guard to help support law enforcement in the city. And you really did hear the president paint quite a
That's not their job, nor are they trained to do that.
Dystopian picture of Washington, D.C., saying that it was overtaken by violent gangs, by bloodthirsty criminals, using this imagery that doesn't necessarily comport with a lot of people's experience in the city, but also with what the actual numbers show. You know, statistics do show that violent crime in Washington is falling since reaching a peak in 2023. The president's aides dispute some of those figures. You heard the president come out saying that some of those statistics might have been cooked, but really when you look at the numbers, what the president is painting is an image that doesn't necessarily match up with what the figures show, but also with what a lot of people's experience in the city is. And so a significant step by the president certainly today.
All right, Kevin Liptak at the White House for us. Kevin, thank you very, very much.
All right, so that's the end of that here. So let's get out of here. And we're going to go to the actual statute here, and that the president is targeting. All right, so let me pull this up here. Home rule. Here we go. All right, so this is the District of Columbia Home Rule Act, Public Law 93-19887, Stats 774, DC Official Code 1-201-01 at Sequel. I don't know what that means. I'm not a lawyer. Approved December 24, 1973. Prepared by Office of the Council of City General. Yada yada yada. All right, so this is what I found about this home rule, right? So we go down here and he talks about 70. This is on. All right, emergency control of the police, right? Section 704, that's what the president said. DC Official Code 1-207-.40, and this is A. Notwithstanding, can I make this any bigger here so you guys can see it, read it here? That's too big. All right. Notwithstanding any other provision of law, whenever the President of the United States determines that special conditions of an emergency nature exist which require the use of Metropolitan Police Force for federal purposes, he may direct the mayor to provide him, and the mayor shall provide such services of the Metropolitan Police Force as the President may deem necessary and appropriate. That seems to me, that language reads to me that he can take in an emergency situation, he can request for the police department to come in and help with whatever natural disaster and or emergency that is going on here. He is in turn going in there and saying, we're taking over and we're going to administer the police services within the city. I just don't see that being what this is, the same thing. I just don't see that, right? In no case, however, shall such services made available pursuant to any such direction under this subsection extend for a period in excess of 48 hours unless the president has, prior to the expiration of such period, notified the chairman and ranking minority members of the committees on the District of Columbia of the Senate and in the House of Representatives. That's what that journalist was saying. You got 48 hours to tell them if it's going to last longer. He's got to do it in writing as to the reason for such direction in the period of time during which the need for such services is likely to continue. So he's got to explain himself. I can't see this being the type of emergency that it was envisioned back when they wrote these parameters here. Subject to the provisions of this subsection subsection C of this section, such services made available in accordance with subsection A, which we just read of this section, shall terminate upon the end of such emergency and the expiration of 30 days following the date on which such services are first made available or the enactment into law of a joint resolution by Congress providing for such termination, whichever occurs first. So they got 30 days to figure this whole mess out. It's got to be done in writing. Congress has got to come together and say, yeah, we should continue with this emergency action, or we should not. Notwithstanding the foregoing provision of this section, in any case in which such services are made available in accordance with the provisions of subsection A of this section during any period of adjournment of the Congress sine die, which I'm not a lawyer, but I think that means that there's no scheduled date to reconvene of this section during any period of adjournment of the Congress. No date to reconvene. Such services shall terminate upon the end of the emergency, which, if you're not really classifying and defining emergency, it could be never. The expiration of the 30-day period following the date in which the Congress first convenes, following such adjournment, or the enactment into law of a joint resolution by Congress providing for such termination, whichever first occurs. Except to the extent provided for this in the subsection of this section, no such service is made available pursuant to the direction of the President. Subsection A of this section shall extend for any period and exception 30 days, unless the House and Senate representatives enact into law a joint resolution authorizing such an extension. A lot of legalese in there, but what I believe that this is saying, and I'm not a lawyer, but I believe this is saying they got 30 days to handle this situation. Otherwise, it's going to expire unless Congress enacts a law stating that this is going to go forward. That's crazy to me. That is absolutely crazy to me. That is absolutely crazy to me. Absolutely crazy that they're proposing this. Let me see here. What else do I got here? All right. So let's read here the declaration of emergency here. Actually, we'll. This is going on for a little bit here. This is a little bit longer than I wanted it to be. But what I did want to show here is the declaring an emergency. You guys can go over to the White House here. This is whitehouse.gov, declaring a crime emergency in the District of Columbia. This is executive orders. Doesn't have the number here yet. August 11th, 2025, by the authority vested in me as president of the as president by the Constitution and the laws of the United States of America, including Section 04 of the District of Columbia Self-Government and Government Reorganization Act, Public Law 93-198. That's what I just read. As amendment, Section 740 of the Home Rule Act, Section 301, Title United States Code is hereby ordered. Section 1, crime is out of control. They're making this case. You guys can move over here. Section 2, services of the Metropolitan Police District. Section 3, operational control of Metro PD. The authority of the president conferred by Section 4 to direct the mayor with respect to current special condition emergency nature is delegated to the attorney general. So he's taking over that. So he's going to get in there and do what he thinks is best for them. So I just want to get one more thing here, and then we'll call it for today. I really thank you guys. Make sure you hit the like button. And so the last thing I wanted to read here is this is a statement from one of the congressional persons here. And this is, do this one here. This is Congresswoman Eleanor Holmes, representing the District of Columbia. Norton's statement after President Trump federalizes D.C. and activates D.C. National Guard. After President Trump announced that he is federalizing D.C.'s Metropolitan Police for the first time in history and activating D.C. National Guard to address crime in the district, Congresswoman Eleanor Holmes Norton, Democrat from D.C., said that the decision is counterproductive, potentially dangerous, and an egregious assault on D.C. home rule. I agree with that. I don't think that this is what the originators of this home rule had in mind. President Trump's decision to federalize MPD and activate the D.C. National Guard to address crime is an historic assault on D.C. home rule, is a counterproductive, escalatory seizure of D.C.'s resources to use for purposes not supported by D.C. residents, and it's more evidence of the urgent need to pass my D.C. statehood bill, Norton said. Crime in D.C. reached a 30-year low in 2024 and is down 26% this year compared to the same time period last year. The administration is justifying the decision by misleadingly citing years-old statistics. If the federal government wanted to be helpful, it could confirm judges to the D.C. courts, which face a perpetual vacancy crisis due to an inaction in the Senate. We should pass my D.C. Courts Home Rule Act to give D.C. Council authority over the jurisdiction and organization of the local D.C. courts. Congress should also pass my bill to expedite the appointment of local D.C. judges. Currently, 20% of the D.C. Superior Court is vacant, significantly impeding D.C.'s ability to try criminal cases in court, harming public safety and access to justice. Again, my thought process, you have to address the job situation. There's jobs, education, there's so many other things to be addressed. Giving them more judges, I don't see how that's going to help, in all honesty. It does not escape me that the president is calling in the DCNG, DC National Guard, under pretext of resurgent crime that numbers do not support. While he was nowhere to be found for hours on January 6, 2021, as DC officials tried to get him to mobilize the DCNG as the U.S. Capitol was under siege, the DCNG should be under control of DC's chief executive the same way governors control their guard unit. There are more than 700,000 DC residents, and they are worthy and capable of governing themselves. The ultimate solution to ensure DC has control of its own resources, is passage of my DC statehood bill, which would provide DC the same protections the states enjoy. The president controls the DCNC unlike state National Guard units, which are controlled by governors. As the U.S. Capitol was under attack on January 6th, DC's mayor was unable to mobilize the DCNG, wasting hours to get a response from the White House and potentially costing lives. Norton and Senator Chris Van Hollen, Democrat from Maryland, had previously introduced bills to give the D.C. mayor control of the D.C. National Guard and to repeal the president's authority to federalize MPD. So that's what they had to say about that. Let me know your thoughts and your opinions. Do you think that this is a great overstep in the president's authority and his abuse of power? Do you think that any of that could be true? What are your thoughts and your opinions about this? Also, I just downloaded a couple of books here that I'm going to read about that I've never read before. You watch a movie here or there about the rise of Hitler and all this, but I'm gonna pour through these books because people keep making these different analogies about what happened then, about what's happening now, the rise of ICE, and that with the budgeting of ICE, if they ever get to full, that's the immigration customs, if they ever get to their full staffing, that they would be a bigger federal government or organization or law enforcement agency than the FBI. So, we got to keep an eye on this, right? Where is this going, right? Him federalizing these troops. Where does this end? We got ICE running around in some places. We got the, potential for untrained and dealing with civilian populations of federal troops. The National Guard, they're running around there enforcing jaywalking, enforcing littering fines. That's a whole process. What is he talking about doing? What are we analyzing? What are we looking at in particular in lines with the Constitution? So that's my spiel. Let me know your thoughts and your opinions. Hit me in the comment section. If you got a story for me to talk about, hit me up. Much love and peace, everyone.